right. Welcome everyone to our inaugural webinar for the brand behavior. We are really excited to get the ball rolling and get this community going. And we have a great expert that you guys, I'm sure, are going to gain a bunch of value from. uh, Pierre DeBois. He is the man. Pierre is an absolute influencer, thought leader in the space of all things content analytics and so on. And the reason why we collaborated with Pierre to do this presentation is because he's able to connect the creative content creation side with the analytics side, and using the creative content to be connected to a lot of the analytics that are all important to us as marketers. And so you guys are going to get some valuable insight from this presentation titled "The Effective Content Creation and Improvement Tips." So if you guys are looking to create content, if you guys are looking to enhance that content, stay tuned because Pierre is going to drop some valuable gems for you. So with that said, why don't I go ahead and hand it over to Pierre? Feel free to introduce yourself, share your screen, and get the ball rolling there. Back to you,
Okay, I
Pierre.
will. Thank
Yep,
you. Thank you for having me.
absolutely.
Hello everyone. My name is Pierre DeBois, and I am the founder of Zamana Analytics. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Um, let's see, I'm going to get the play here, get started. So this is a custom deck I had put together, and it's kind of part of a little bit of my background, along with what's been happening with content creation, a little bit with the analytics. We always got to slide that in there. And then, but in general, just basically, it's focused on not just creation, but organizing. I'm going to get to why that's critical in a moment. But let's just jump in. Just a little bit about myself. I just want to hit the highlights of this. My background is a mix of engineering, business. I was a Ford engineer way before I started my MBA, and even way before I started Zamana Analytics. Now we're celebrating our 15th year in business. Yay. I hope all of you find a way to get to 15 years and longer. I've also been a columnist. People have asked me to talk about analytics quite a bit, as Jonte had brought up. I've been a columnist for CMS Wire for almost 10 years, freelance, and then also for other sites as IT Pro. And this year, I became an adjunct professor for Trine University, which is based out of Angola, Indiana, just north of Fort Wayne, where I remote talk about data. We just got through a class on data visualization using Tableau. So very excited, and I'm looking forward to doing it again in the fall as well. But let's get into our topic here a little bit, which is on content creation. And what I want to do is talk a little bit about, give you some nuggets and some tips on organizing your content. And this is aimed at small businesses who have a marketer, but they have a very small team, somewhere under 50. And if you're a solopreneur or even or just a freelance, you can benefit from this. Content is one of those weak words that has a big meaning or big impact on marketing because there's so many different types of content. Content is just very general. And as you probably well know, we are experiencing a revolution thanks to AI. AI has made it possible for different types of marketing teams to take a look at how to create their content even faster.
Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. We're going to go ahead and have Pierre hop back on shortly. But I'm going to talk about some of the things that I'm really excited to find out through this presentation. One is ultimately creating content for content's sake is out. So we want to figure out how can we effectively create content and work smarter and not harder. So one of the things I believe Pierre is going to cover is how to take a deep dive into your data to actually figure out what's working in your content versus just continuing to create content for content's sake. Oftentimes, marketers, we have our directives to create some type of initiative for a campaign that we're rolling out. We'll think about the type of content that we need to create from content pillars and archetypes and all those things. And we get so deep into the trenches when trying to develop content that we oftentimes overlook the content that is already there that we may have created months ago, and that content could still be impactful. It may need to just have a small tweak here or there, may need to be refreshed, add more case studies, more examples, things of that nature, in order to enhance the content. And we think about the amount of time that it takes in order to start a new batch of content from ideation to the development and implementation and publishing and measurement and so on. It's going to take a little bit of time. So if we tap into the data and look at our existing content, I think ultimately it would help when it comes to creating more effective content. So that's one thing I'm really excited, and I'm planning on asking Pierre some questions specifically about key metrics that are important now, and focusing on those key metrics to see how they can be used in order to leverage um, or develop a better content. So we're going to go ahead and pick up where we left off, Pierre. If you want to go and go ahead and share your screen,
Okay.
and I believe we started where you ended was right after you. I think you explained the class that you were teaching, then it went out after that. So if you can pick it up from there, that'll be great.
Okay. Okay, great. Actually, that's good. I apologize about that. I swapped over on a Wi-Fi and have my mobile phone as a backup in case. I'm just a little concerned on the Zoom, but that's all right. So I apologize. So let's start in a little bit. I mentioned about my class. I was just starting. I just started doing at being an adjunct professor for Trine. But let's jump into the content a little bit here. So content marketing has been an overdrive this year, thanks to all the advances from AI from last year that are coming into fruition. People are learning and experimenting this year, so you have an opportunity to come up with a lot of content. But the challenge is now there's all this content and what do we do with it? How do we organize it? And so for this presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that are out there that you can use, but also talk a little bit about how to organize those things so that way you can be much more effective in the business that you're working with. Like I said, AI is reinvigorating content. One of the studies that have come out came from Bain and Company. I just wanted to note it here on this slide that 11% of B2B firms are experimenting with more than two use cases. 38% are using for one use case. So what that means to you, if you're a small business, maybe a small marketing team, is that while there's a lot of buzz going on, it's not too late to experiment. Even now in May 2024, people are just kind of learning how to get things into gear, and you have an opportunity to do that. Most of the experimentation are using AI to learn how to appeal to customers via chatbot, um, automating certain documentation to make it easier to get certain tasks done, and automating a marketing task in general. So there's a lot of experimentation that's going on. But that experimentation can make your behind the scenes look very much like how I did back almost 15 years ago. This was literally how I would work with people. I used to have my headphones at the ready, packs of paper and notebooks, basically going through all sorts of code and all sorts of studying, but it also felt like a ton of things right around me. So one of the things that you have to figure out with content is figure out how to organize, because organizing your content literally recalibrates your business. It allows you to figure out where you should be focusing on a little bit more, maybe a little bit more, and what you could be doing a little bit less of as well. But having just the content ideas doesn't mean that you're now streamlining not only the effort behind the scenes, but also the messaging that goes into it. So should you start? Well, everyone's going to tell you, and they're going to be right in telling you that you need to start with your persona. Again, who is it that you're trying to attract with your content? But I want to take it a step further than that. Beyond just deciding who that is, you want to look at the activity that they're doing. Many of the digital ad platforms, whether you use Google or maybe some of the social media platforms, or even the emerging platforms for something like, say, Amazon. There's even retail platforms for groceries, believe it or not. Kroger's getting into that space. But in all these cases, there's a common thread. You want to figure out the activities that your customers are doing, and then use and thinking about how much that spend is going on around that activity. Doing that helps you to figure out who is the right audience you should be targeting for your service, product, or just general events that you're offering. So for example, this is just from Chicago. I took a picture of owners playing with their pets, and most people would just stop and say, I produce this great pet product for owners who have dogs and cats. But it's a little bit more to it than that. You need to think about the activity so that way you can craft a message around when the customer might need your product or service. That's the key. And in fact, many of these platforms are designed to do that. Thinking about how customers with pets spend a certain dollar amount on, let's say, pet health care might help you think about, when would they go for that health, when would they start, what sort of activities would they be looking for in maintaining their pet's health? And those activities would be just, going to Target for example, or to their local pet store, for example. It could be a search online using certain keyword phrases, which of course from SEO, that's been part of the gig. But the point of this is that you need to think about persona, think about the activity around that where your product or service is a fit for that. And then looking at the dollar spend can help you figure out what the people are spending around that activity, can help you figure out if this is even worth your time if you're launching a product or a service. Now, once you do that, you start to think about content ideas, and there's a lot of different ways to create and craft content. Different groups have different ideas. This image here is from Chicago. This is from a group I follow called the Black Mall. They highlight Black-owned businesses, and they're trying to be in a lot of ways like just informational more than anything else. You could be a great curator of answers to questions, things that people are looking for. Yes, even in the age of AI, GPT and Gemini, you can still be someone informational. And doing that, having content like that makes it easier for your content to be possibly picked up not only by the search engines, but also by Chat GPT and Gemini, because Chat GPT, Gemini, and Perplexity and a lot of the Gen AIs usually are looking at search data these days. So that actually can come into play. Being informational is helpful. Making comparisons of products that people use all the time. That's also another way of framing a content idea. Hot take curations. If there's a lot of different news or different quick insights around your subject, that can also be of help. News, of course, sharing announcements about things within your company and product updates. And this is just trying to help people figure out how to learn a little bit more about your company. That's a great idea. And then, of course, the popular how-to guides, helping people step by step for explanations for things ranging from how to be a better photographer to maybe say how to take care of your lawn much further. These things, frameworks, should be part of your messaging plan. Now, once you have those frameworks, the next thing you want to think about is the mediums in which those frameworks are being shared. And right now, it's to kind of have one clear-cut group. I've put with four, which I think are that you should keep in mind for right now. It just makes it a lot easier. Articles, this goes into podcast, things like something you have on Medium or something even you have on LinkedIn. Anything that can allow people read when they take in information differently than a video, and allows them to have step-by-step comprehension, which for a lot of products and services, that's what you need to do. Video, of course, is very popular. Demonstrates what to expect from running a process. That's kind of the general idea. Podcasts and live streams are very popular right now because it allows not only the best combinations of articles and videos, but also you can also have guests on your podcast to help add a little bit more perspective to certain topics. People do look for that. Live streams are popular, and then audio chats is relatively new. This is basically Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, LinkedIn events. It's kind of an offshoot of the live streams, but a lot of these are usually shared stage where you have groups of people coming together to talk about a particular product, service, or something associated with a product or service. So with all these put together, you want to try to identify how and list out where you think you could share your content and what you want to do. Doing this helps you also plan out specs for everything because every type of platform, whether it's Instagram Reels, whether it's just something through Facebook, each one has different image sizes. Each one has different limits if you're recording video, so that there's a different file size. Each one of these triggers different things that you need to be doing in your operation. So for articles, it could be a Medium or Substack. or blogging your site. And I bring this up. Medium is really a good platform if you're trying to share content because there's a lot of different backend pieces there that will help you share. If you have a blog on your site, WordPress has been the go-to for longer than I've been in business, and there's a lot of great plugins that will make it easier to share information from there. Video shorts could be project work or feature some highlights for you. Longer videos could be for projects and education. Podcasts, of course, you can be educating people about your products and services. And then, as I mentioned with the live chats, you have group discussions about the insights that you want to share. We're going to look at a little bit at some of the tools, and I'll mention some of the AI here a little bit because there are some differences that are forming between each one of the platforms. I mentioned Perplexity and Gemini, which used to be called Google Bard, because they do two things I particularly like. Gen AI, what it's designed to do is to basically summarize a lot of different information. And people use that for summarizing information to support their blogs, articles, even come up with lists for things for their podcasts or for their audio chats. But the challenge is that you can't see with some platforms, they're kind of working on this. Initially, it was hard to see what was being sourced as a suggestion. So there's a lot of different issues that come in there in terms of liability. This is why you see a lot of discussion with the musicians on using AI, who's responsible. But for things like content, written and video, Perplexity is really, really good because it gives you all the power of Chat GPT. Plus, when you get the results, as you can see here, it shows you not only the name of the person. I asked about myself, for example. It also gives you a little bit of links, and in the sources shows you where within the web that has been pulling that information. That's super helpful for you to kind of know not only how it's being pulled that information, so that way you're not saying something that's not true, but you also can get an idea of even for your own brand where you're noticed much more. Gemini does a similar thing, except it also does it with a YouTube. There's also a YouTube extension, which is specifically designed to, we ask for things like in the query here, asking for videos for barbecue sauce recipes. You get these, it shows you where all these videos are and what it's referencing. And that can be really a good discovery if you are doing live casts that are recorded through YouTube Studio or uploaded to YouTube. Again, great way to be discovered. But if you're creating content, it also gives you a sense of where something is coming from. Okay. So in creating content, when you use AI, I mentioned this a little bit before, you want to think of it as a brainstorm partner, but not as an absolute. Brainstorming is, if you think about the activity, it's just gathering the ideas together and trying to organize it. If you go back to the 70s, like to the Soul Train Scrabble board, where everyone had a certain amount of time to put those letters together, it's the same concept. And AI has that same concept. But to use it effectively in business, you want to think more about crafting your prompt with some details. That could be a chain of thought. That could be, but there needs to be at least some example at the end of the day. So, for example, what we see here on screen, this is from an article I wrote for CMS Wire. I mentioned about the new Pierre smartphone, and I gave it some examples of some of what it's about. That's water resistant, long lasting. Um, and then I asked it to come up with what it thinks is the most consistent messaging among those. And it came back with a text that you see at the bottom here that it crafted together that covered some of those points, basically. And so you can use that as some sort of brainstorming to help you summarize things, basically. But the key to it is that you need to give it some level of example. Again, it could be chain of thought, it could be a previous example. Doing that helps it to refine the details in some sort of way that makes sense. If you don't do it, if you do it more as a one shot, you're going to get some responses that may not necessarily be elaborate or may elaborate in a direction different from what you intended from your messaging. That's the key thing you want to keep in mind for AI in general. Now, if you're doing written content, this is my personal favorite, dictation. This is right now, there's a number of platforms, Microsoft Word, Evernote, Dictation is a standalone website, and then even in Google Docs, you have the capacity to dictate into either a laptop or a smartphone, your initial draft. This is a game changer. There's been plenty of times where I've been behind a laptop and I just could not get an idea out of my head, but I could speak it much more faster. So using the dictation, what you can do is just get the idea out there. And then what that does is that shifts the work that you go into in your written content. What you're doing now is shortening that first part of just creating it. And then you have to refine it anyway. No one gets a first, very few people get a first draft that's picture perfect. So what you're doing is shortening that creation process and then focusing on the refining part a little bit more. But that's a great way of getting started. And if you get stuck on things, it's a great way of getting motivated. One quick tip I'm going to give on the Google Docs: if you're doing something with dictation, set up the word count. That might help you if you know that you have only a certain limited word count for inserting certain text. That might help you quite a bit to kind of keep in track quite a bit, a little bit. And there was plenty of times where I've written something where it went beyond a certain word count, but I was able to even save and use the rest of that material for something else. So something to keep in mind. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about AI assistants, and this is a growing area, particularly for image creation. AI assistants is a group of, it's not quite like ChatGPT or Gemini. They're more or less built into other applications, and probably the most significant one that has come up has been coming from Meta. They just introduced Meta AI, which is a simple prompt, which in the search text window for Facebook, Instagram, don't think it's on Threads. I'm almost pretty sure about that, but Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook Messenger. And so the idea is that you would use these assistants, just rely on a certain keyword prompt to get them started. So for Meta, it would be something like image. I think if I remember, Midjourney uses a similar prompt as well. But the point of it is that you use a keyword prompt and create a very simple message. I had one, for example, an image of a Toyota Supra, and it gave me back four different images of a Toyota Supra. But you can also use it for a little bit more than this. You can also use it for creating simple lists. So there's another example here. This is from the Meta site, creating a packing list for a trip. And that might be helpful if you know that you have a product or service that you know might be brought along on a camping trip or brought along on vacation, when you plan out your persona activity. So things like that can be very helpful just to get that initial idea. The big difference with this and the Gen AI tools, and we'll get to that in a second, is that these are designed to be very, very simple in terms of a prompt. So you don't get you can do some elaborate, but not really. There's some certain things in terms of change of thought that they're not quite have yet, but I'm pretty sure that at some point that might change. And then of course you can do image, you have image creators with Gen AI. And these are the big ones that you probably heard of. This is Midjourney, which has been super popular. You have Chat GPT, which uses DALI, and I believe Gemini also has one as well. This is just a simple example as well, where I asked for just a create an image of a 2018 Mazda 3 hatchback. But the key to this is being descriptive. And I was very specific about the model year, vehicle, and a model. Still some things that weren't quite perfect. Like if you look at the wheels, each wheel is really not the same wheel that you would have seen on a 2008 Mazda. And I know firsthand that's car. So so the idea is that you want to think in one shots are okay, but you still want to think about in terms of elaborating on the detail a little bit. Okay. Talk video editors for a moment. So there's a number of them out there. Camtasia is my personal favorite. I've used that now for pretty much throughout my business career, but there's also another one called CapCut as well. And even YouTube Studio has editing as well too. The big one you want to look for any of these types of tools is to take a look at how you're able to take images, video segments and audio segments and swap them in quickly. You can see down here, this is the interface on Camtasia. This is a little older, but still, it's the same layout basically. In the center at the top, you kind of see where the people are. That is kind of like the canvas where you can kind of see your video and get your playback. To the left of it are video segments. There's some additional selection to the right. That's not there right now. But at the bottom, you see the sort of timeline um, where you see a timeline and you kind of see all these images all at the bottom. What this is designed to do is take these images and you can stack them in different parts and you can even put in transitions in between them. So that way you can show different parts of a different aspects you want to do. You can switch and swap all you want. This particular image of the whole Camtasia, I'm extremely proud of because we were able to use take the JPEGs of each slide presentation and then transition between audience, me speaking, and then having the slide. So that way people who are following along on YouTube could actually see the material. Use this ahead. The biggest thing is that it should be easy for you to move files back and forth. We'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. But the big part of this is that I mentioned about dedicated resources at the bottom. If it's a lot of files, it can be a little bit, it can almost be a little tedious to swap things back and forth. So experiment. 40 is kind of like your if you're trying to keep it to something simple. That way you're not spending the whole day. You don't want your marketing person to become a video producer, and you don't want and it's probably vice versa as well. But it does get a little bit more elaborate. And you want to be a little bit careful about putting too much up front. So keep 40 in mind. 40 image audio files together is a good bogey to keep in mind, which leads us to keeping track of everything. So this is probably the most important piece when you get into content creation. Putting together a match your content to platform is helpful for a lot of reasons, because now you can kind of get a sense of what ideas might be useful for one platform versus the other. This is one I made in Evernote, and in my experience, I tend to swap between things for CMS Wire, which is great because I kind of know what they're looking for, things from Medium, which might fit a blog for me, basically. And then also for Clubhouse, and maybe a couple of things that might be a good topic. Clubhouse, and I think Twitter Spaces will allow you to share a link with your audience, so you kind of get an idea. But having this table is really important and kind of helps you balance. Um, Storing images. You need to have a dedicated folder someplace, and Google Drive is the easiest when you got a team of people. That's obvious. But even if you're an army of one, you need something that can let you label your pictures as best as possible. They should not be image number 55328-7. You need something that helps with the description, that helps you to find things quickly, because you'll find out there's some things you may be able to reuse differently than before. So definitely think about labeling. And this is not an easy job. You want to think about it at least every quarter if you can't get to it once a month. And it just depends on the volume of content you're producing out. And then as you're producing your content, you want to ask some key questions as you're looking at the volume of content, how relevant it is to the audience you're reaching. Questions you want to ask yourself does it's like on on the platform you've chosen, are you catering to your target audience needs? And are they catering at every step of some sort of customer journey? That's what you want your messaging to do. When you think about activity and the amount spend, you should be thinking about, how your solution is helping along the journey. And you're trying to get the customers at that touch point right before they decide to come to your website or if they decide to come to your store. Second, are we discovering some interest not captured at the start of a content plan? That is, no matter how well you plan things out, you will get more. There'll be some more things you discover about your customers. So be ready and get, start noticing what things are coming up as they respond to your content. You want to look at how frequent the activity is. Is new people coming to your website to do conversions? And conversions is an analytics term. Google just changed it to key events, but most people call it conversions. It's basically, are people purchasing? Are they reading a blog that you intended them to read? Are they clicking on a video? It's activity that you want on your website or some platform that should be occurring relative to the content you're sharing. And then the cost of developing your content, this is always it should go, to be honest with you. Most people should not be spending thousands of dollars on one big thing that's to go viral. That's not really a good plan. the work that you put into content can get expensive if you are hiring models for a particular photo shoot, which turns into the images, which turns into the things that you use for your written content and maybe into your post. Um, those sort of things, looking at the expense of those and then looking at what the return is, and the return isn't always immediate. You want to look at think about how much you're spending versus how frequency there's activity. I think that gives you a clue that maybe it might be something it definitely will tell you something might need to be adjusted, basically. So keep that in mind. So I'm going to go through a couple of these real quick. Google Analytics has been a really good resource for understanding how people come to your site. I just kind of put in one slide here to kind of talk about this. Looking at referral sources, which you can do in a referral traffic report, can help you make that comparison of how frequent the activity is. So, for example, if you've decided that you want to spend more time on Facebook versus X, but you go back to your referral traffic report and you see that you get more traffic, you're getting more traffic from X, and they're actually converting. That's telling you that there may be something you should be doing on X that might be helping to drive that a little bit more. And you see this with platforms all the time. Alignable, I mentioned about that. There's the thing you want to ask is which sources are seeing the most activity from your content investment, and that's what you want. You want to get a feel for that from these type of reports. The other big kahuna is looking at evergreen content, and this is kind of there's sort of a technique to this, but the point of it is you're going to have a lot of traffic, maybe a lot of page views for maybe a blog post, or maybe for a page that's hosting a video. What you want to do is look at the average time on a page and kind of see if it's in what you have on an average. So for example, our average here for these 10 blog posts, these imaginary blog posts, is 3 minutes, 21 seconds. But if we look at blog post 4, the average time on there is 4 minutes, 9 seconds. And then we have blog post 7 at 4 minutes, 34 seconds. So they may not be getting a lot of visits, and there are some things about average statistically that can be a little tricky. But the point is that um, the fact that those are longer and that they are, they may not be getting as many page views as a top blog number one blog post, but if they've been around for a while, if you look at the dates and everything, you can see that they're getting some traffic, and repeat traffic can be just as important. It's kind of a lazy way of branding, but it also means that it may be indicating that that might be a topic that you might want to turn around and build some new content for later on. But use this as sort of an organizing task, helping you to learn what may be lasting out a little longer and teasing out what might be great, what might be worth going after that could be just as valuable as the number one or number two blog post. I can tell you off the bat, when it comes to content, most times every blog I've seen, there's usually the first number one, number two, three are very high in visits, very high in sessions and page views, but then it kind of slopes down almost like this curve, and you get a long tail for other posts that may not get as much volume, but they're still consistently drawing an audience. And you want to keep that in mind. And then from all of this, note how your community is responding. Note how your note your community communication. So you want to think about, you want to see if community members are noticing your work, making comments to it. This is how the social media platforms are, the algorithms are set. They're really set on engagement. With that one years ago as a way of moving people away from trying to make things all the time. You want to look for engagement, encourage engagement, respond to people on your where you can. The interaction should be more than a hello. Sometimes a hello is good for re-engaging with people you haven't talked to in a while, but ask some probing questions once in a while and let people know that you're out there. A few quick last thoughts. All of this means that in content creation, you need to plan out some periodic review of progress. Everyone has to do this. If you just kind of keep throwing content out there, it's almost like throwing spaghetti on the wall all the time. Periodic review at least every quarter. Treat yourself like a publicly traded company. Every quarter, look at the progress if you can't do it on a monthly basis. One quick analytic note, do not make it so that if you try to do things on a daily basis, like, oh, how many visits this day, how many visits the next day, sometimes you're not getting a trend. You need to let a trend form to inform you on what's working and what's not. List out the workflow when you do review your progress. take note of your team. Use if you have most people have teams sprawled all over the place throughout the world. You need to kind of anchor yourselves and pull yourselves together to figure out where people are getting stuck creating content. Are they getting stuck creating images? Are they getting stuck editing images? Like I mentioned about Camtasia. Camtasia is a great tool, but if you have a lot of images, the more images you have, the more time you're spending at it. Same thing for CapCut. You want to think about the workflow. As I kind of hinted at this, viral is nice, but viral is always an outlier of response. Viral, you still needs a little bit of a don't my like do not just get stuck on trying to be viral. You need follow-up to get branding. You need follow-up to encourage people to convert on. So viral is nice, but it's not the whole enchilada. What should lead into a steady content creation, which leads into steady messaging for your customers to learn about you, learn about what you offer, and how you are solving their problem, because that is what they're looking for online. So with that, that presentation, and I'm going to give people some time to talk, and I want to say thank you for following me through this presentation, and I hope these tips are helpful to you.
I'm sure they were. There were you, everybody, give a virtual clap. Give a virtual clap to Pierre. Thank you so much for all the information that you presented. I'm sure it was for the audience. We had a couple questions for you, if you don't mind asking
More
or
than happy
answering.
to do it. So bring them on.
Oh, okay, perfect, perfect. You talked a lot about the various tools in your presentation. I know you have some that you ultimately like, but if you can run down a short list of some of the tools from a content creation or analytic perspective that you like using, just so that we can recap that.
I can right now my two favorites. I like GPT, but I like Perplexity and Gemini a little bit better because I mentioned the presentation that gives sources quite easily. In fact, so much so I think Chat GPT may be shifting to that as well too at some point. So you're going to see that, which leads to my next point, comparison shop with a lot of the platforms, because usually if one thing catches on with one, the other will try to kind of play up that. But I like Chat GPT because of there's a called advanced data analysis. It's a plugin that allows you to upload Excel sheets, and can run a lot of different statistical modes. This is more for advanced analytics when you need to make a regression, something that some sort of correlation between one set of data versus the other. Things that involve Python and R programming. So that might be a little more advanced, but it's still helpful. Gemini, though, I like the fact that there's a summary on Gemini. And Gemini, the other thing I want to bring up is that I mentioned about YouTube extension. Pay attention to that if you are a YouTube, if your business as far as content is centered around YouTube, because there's a lot of different synergy that Google has been trying to work with not only YouTube, but some of the other Google properties that it's had for a long time. So paying attention to that can help you. If you're using Google Docs, paying attention to Gemini will help you for that.
That makes sense there. And so as a marketing agency, we are focusing on how to leverage AI in ways that would help our team work more effective, smarter, if you will. And we're noticing clients asking about that as well. And so as we begin to wrap our heads around it, we have a battle between the specific AI, whether that's ChatGPT, Gemini, Bard, Gronk, or whatever, and then the actual platform or tool that we're using that's connected to it. And so, what should we consider when searching for a specific AI tool to incorporate into our own systems? Is it more about the tool that's using that specific AI as a backend, or is it more about that backend AI tool versus the actual interface that's being used?
I think it's former, to be honest with you, for a couple of
Mhm.
reasons. Right now AI is it's that if you bought a car and notice like there's one feature that now everybody has to have, basically it's the same thing going on with the AI. I'll date myself. I remember the 80s fuel injection was a big deal when they had that the automobile. So I tease people, AI is kind of like fuel injection. Everyone's trying to have it. Canva has an AI tool, and I can say off the bat, Lexus does not yet, but I put emphasis on the word yet because that is coming. So it's usually it would say if you're a business owner or a marketer, look first at the tools you're using. Sit down and there's a lot of tools. That's also the challenge. Scott Brinker, I think, just said there's like 14,000 MarTech tools. So in marketing, there's all these tools. I don't think people should be switching wholesale. I think instead what should be happening is looking at the integrations. That's one big part of it because then from workflow, you can kind of make some decisions on, am I working on this tool frequently enough to use this AI feature? The second piece I would look for is pricing. And here's why I bring this up. AI is expensive. When I had for Evernote, for example, I had used to have like a $10, I think it was not even $11 per month subscription. It jumped to 17. So $6 is not like a big deal, but still a jump basically. And you're seeing that with some of the platforms right now. Some AI consumes a lot of data, and in the process, it's a lot of querying back and forth. And these companies are, when they're adding the feature, it's also adding costs to them, and customers are seeing that in the subscription. So it becomes this sort of, is the price worth it? It's worth my time? Is it a tool that I'm using? And if it no, then definitely don't spend that much more. But definitely look at the few use the tool and the pricing as well too, and then kind of make an assessment basically. And if you're trying it out, one of the things I tell people at during the fall, use that fall time as a time to really look at everything and just ask an honest question. Is the subscription worth it? Because we're in a subscription world, and some things shift as your teammates are working on your projects.
Yeah, yeah. They say that AI is sort of like the wild, wild west, and it's. I remember being similar to when social media just came out, and businesses were trying to figure out how to wrap their heads around using social media. And it seems like that's the case now, right? We have AI. It's here. It's dominant. Businesses and people are trying to figure out how to leverage it. It's somewhat scary, unfamiliar, when we're out ways to leverage the technology. um, I'm trying to figure out how we should adjust the way in which we leverage or build upon the technology. In particular, when we look at building out processes for AI that is based upon Chat GPT 3, and then 3.5 comes out, and then 4, and now there's Rim 5, right?
Mhm.
All these processes essentially have to change because now, let's say instead of uploading documents, now they'll be able to visit sites, or instead of visiting sites, now they'll be able to connect text, where you don't have to tell them which site to visit, tell the AI site which site to visit, but you tell them the topic and they'll go out and visit those websites for you, right? Um, all these things are coming, but people are starting to build SOPs and protocols based upon the current updates. So, how far should we double down on AI? Should we wait a little bit? Should we double down a little bit more? I mean, there's just so much going on, even with SEO and impacts of AI have on SEO content, and you'll have people that are just creating a bunch of AI generated content, and Google makes an algorithm update. Now that content either de-indexed or penalized. You drop in rankings. So should we hurry up and double down on AI? Should we kind of sit in the sidelines and wait? What's your opinion?
I don't think we can wait, but I think we need to move deliberately with certain level of um, experimentation. Bain brought up a good point about B2B businesses that only 11% were doing more than 2 use cases, which means it's a small percentage. That means 1 out of 10 people are using AI for 2 use cases. I think that for a slow walk up to it, I don't think anyone should be sitting around thinking, "Oh, I will never use AI," because we're looking at the caboose right now, basically. But the challenge that there is a challenge about going too fast with something or automating something just to be convenient, and that's not what you want to look for. You want to look for what is the potential beyond the potential convenience. What is it doing that will save you cost in terms of how much you're spending on a particular project or particular process. That's the idea. And keep in mind, there's a lot of things that still need human intervention. AI was trained on certain types of data, but it may not be on domain data specific to you, which is why you see people get excited about Llama 3 and other frameworks where they can build their own. But by doing that, they're looking, that's a whole different all game. They're looking at RAG. They're looking at a whole database. They're looking at the types of data they want to have queried alongside what's in that model, basically. So and that takes time to develop. The thing we got to remember is that everything that we're looking at are engineered products. They're just like I always tell people, even a website is, if you think about a website, it's a software. And I always tell people that a website is just like a Corvette, a two-dimensional Corvette. A Corvette, you can physically see the width and get excited about how they crafted the engineering for the upper control arms on the suspension, or how the engine was designed. This generation, people were excited that it became a mid-engine. But for something like data, it's a little bit more two-dimensional. So sometimes you have to be a little bit imaginative. And people, right now, the hot thing that people are imagining is content, but AI can do much more, but there's still work being done. So I would say put a pace but use it to experiment, and don't feel bad that you haven't caught up to everybody, because Bain study, and there's other studies out there, they're showing that people are still juggling they're still juggling with AI a little bit, which is okay. I mean, that's how technology is anyway. So
Yeah, for sure. And we have a couple more questions that have come in from the audience. This person says, could the advent of generative AI lead to the replacement of lawyers, particularly those who specialize in transactional law? And that's very nuanced, but what's your opinion on that?
yeah, I would say not yet. And here's why. I'm a lawyer by trade, so probably maybe speaking a little bit out of turn. Lawyers do a little bit more than just interpreting a law. They do a little bit more than just kind of putting together a case for a legal case. I still remember when I got in New York, for example, it took a lawyer who actually changed my mind about signing an agreement I wasn't going to sign, but he called me up and we had just a very straightforward conversation about why I wouldn't sign. But what he was doing was trying to simplify a process, and you need people who can do that from time to time. AI is great with repetition. It's not necessarily, I don't think we're there yet for interpretation yet. And this is where very specialized jobs, like being a lawyer, you still need that domain knowledge being accessed, and this is where I'm not one of those people who think that we're going to lose our jobs next week. So we still got a little ways to go. Be
Yeah,
happy,
and and
rejoice.
and this next question coming from community also is along that same line. This person asks, will generative AI replace more human jobs than it creates for people? For instance, can generative AI tools replace human coders and developers? Will generative AI be capable of replacing the jobs lost with new ones more rapidly, or will it lead to displacement of unemployed professionals? What's your opinion?
I don't think so yet. There's about AGI, which is a little bit more advanced. We really haven't seen that yet. So I'm waiting for that to come before I start getting on a bandwagon of like, hey, this is going to replace people or what have you. I don't think it, it does fascinating discussion on, what do people do, because we identify ourselves through our profession. And what we've basically with AI, with all this about this, it's almost like saying that there's going to be this Star Trek like existence. If you ever look at Star Trek, if you go back to even Next Generation, all that existence was about the idea that not that you had computers running everything, but you had people where the economy was not built just around, you do things to build your personal more than you do a job 40 hours a week. And so
Yep.
that I think we're stepping to that at some level, although I think the challenge will be um, even in Star Trek, computers don't run the entire decision for attack versus not attack. There was an episode on the old Kirk debated having a computer running the entire enterprise. So we'll still exist. We just have, I think that shift is coming. It's just a little bit more gradual than what we keep thinking, basically. So
Yeah,
that's my two
that
cents.
I hear that. Well, Pierre, thank you so much for this valuable presentation. Let everyone know where they can reach out to you. What are you offering? Let us know.
Okay, well, they can reach me through zamana.com. We're actually in the process. We've been trying to update our website, so this is kind of like that old, the cobbler's shoe mentality of the cobbler is a little better than the shoe. But we are updating our website. We are going to try to put some training together towards the end of the year. So look for that. It will help people to understand what to look for better in their analytics. I found in 15 years doing the one-on-ones have been helpful, but now the world is much more broader and people just really need to have that there. If they watch this video, if they mention the video, if they say John Tay to me or say it in the email, you get 25% off. So that's our offer. Work with,
Nice.
yeah, but we'll, yeah. So we'll work with you. And if you are just starting out, that's fine. But we look for clients who are just, they have specific issues with data and they're not sure what's telling them. And we have the experience and the insight to help you quickly get to that and help you build and grow your business correctly. So there
Awesome.
you
Well,
go.
Pierre, again, thank you so much for all of this information, this valuable session. I'm sure you all believe it was valuable. If you want more sessions just like this, feel free, log on to thebrandbehavior.com. That is officially our digital domain community where we have a bunch of digital branders that are consuming content. We're practicing, we're implementing, we're sharing stories. We are sharing tools as well. And we are doing things that are ultimately going to take our brand to the next level. So if you want more information like this, feel free to log on to thebrandbehavior.com for more information. Again, Pierre, thank you so much. And on behalf of the Digital Delane team who put this fabulous webinar together, thank you all as well. And we'll see you guys at the next one. Bye for now.
Take care.